Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the LSU Sports Insider. This is our women's basketball NCAA tournament special edition. I'm Zach Ewing with our advocate, LSU women's basketball beat writer, Reed Darcey. And this recap of the first round preview of the second round against Florida State is brought to you by Our Lady of the Lake Health, the official championship health partner of LSU athletics. So bring in Reed Darcey, who was there in person at the PMAC late last night, to watch LSU's demolition of San Diego State, 103-48. So Reed, LSU, I think, got everything it wanted out of that performance. They had to feel good about themselves coming out, feel good about the health of some of their players, and just kind of left no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. The top takeaway, I think, is that Flau'jae Johnson and Aneesah Morrow looked fantastic last night. You know, we kind of all this week, all last week, and the lead up to the game, we kind of beat the dead horse. You know, talking about their injuries, trying to say, okay, we know they're going to play. You know, we know they've been battling through some pain recently, but we're not exactly sure how close to 100% they'll be. We're not exactly sure how good they'll look, and I think we got an answer to that question pretty quickly. Last night in that game, they both look really sharp. They both look really refreshed and rested. And obviously, I think they really energized the whole LSU team. And that's really why they got off to such a good start. And they could ride that wave to really one of the most impressive, I think, wins of the season. We can get into it a little bit, but it really felt like they played a full 4 quarters. And that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to LSU's undefeated start, and even as they were winning some impressive games, there was kind of like lulls in those games where they would play a bad quarter or a bad half and then have to recover, and you kind of think, got to wait to see this team put it together, and they did, and it's the right time to be doing that. Obviously, it's still the first round, but I mean, 50% from the floor, 56% from three. Flau'jae Johnson, as you mentioned, 9 of 15 from the floor, 4 of 7 from three. Michaela Williams hit all 3 of her 3-point shots. Cheyenne Day Wilson came off the bench and hit 3 of 4 3-pointers. Like this LSU team, when they shoot, they're scary.
Yes, 45 bench points, second most of the season, by far the most since SEC play began in January. And that's really what was so striking about this game, is that it wasn't just the big three. It was all the contributors around them. Everyone really had a good game. Miracle Shepherd was fantastic off the bench. Even Aaliyah Del Rosario, who got in the second half, was scoring tough shots, grabbing a bunch of rebounds. She was really impressive too. So it was a full, complete performance. And I think probably the most important number on that box score that you're reading off is the minutes for Flau'jae and Aneesah. Flau'jae played 22 minutes and Aneesah played 25. And so I think we talked about it last week. We said, hey, in a perfect world, LSU would want to keep their minutes down, make sure they get their feet wet, ease in. And that's exactly what they were able to do because they had such a good start last night against San Diego State.
Yeah, I don't know that Kim Mulkey would have drawn it up a whole lot better. Like we talked about this gambit she kind of was playing the last week of the regular season, the SEC tournament, and all the national talking heads say, LSU's stumbling into the tournament. It was almost by design. I mean, I'm sure Kim Mulkey would have liked to see maybe slightly better level of play, but Flau'jae Johnson was not playing by design. Michaela Williams was not playing by design. So the fact that they looked so good and, as you said, didn't have to empty the gas tank on Saturday night should mean good things for this game tomorrow night, which, we need to talk about Florida State as well. But I did want to mention real quick, Reed, also defensively, San Diego State, just nothing easy. 18 of 56 from the floor, 3 of 22 from three. And, they missed a couple of open looks, but most of these were not open looks. They only had 6 offensive rebounds despite missing all of they missed 38 shots, only got 6 of them back. LSU had 10 steals, 4 blocks, forced 19 turnovers. I mean, it was just a very complete performance.
Yeah, and we can talk about, I think San Diego State, we probably one of those teams that caught fire in their conference tournament and sort of got fortunate to get their way into the NCAA tournament. But at the end of the day, LSU still won by 55 points, and that's by far the largest margin of victory they've had in an NCAA tournament game under Kim Mulkey. Before yesterday, the previous record or the previous high was their 27-point win last year against Middle Tennessee. And if you remember that game, Middle Tennessee early in the second half had a 9-point lead on LSU. So LSU had to erase that lead and pull in front for a win. That's not what happened yesterday. It was a wire-to-wire win. San Diego State never led, and LSU coasted through the whole thing and ended up winning by 55. In a trend that we've seen throughout this tournament, a lot of the top seeds have been winning by pretty large margins. A lot of them have been scoring over 100 points. And so far, it's been mostly chalk. And I think we'll see tomorrow if that holds up down here in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. And Florida State maybe was equally impressive to LSU playing in the early game Saturday. And we saw like Duke annihilated Lehigh in the first round, then really kind of struggled with Baylor today, or not. That was the men's team that played Baylor with Oregon today on the women's side. And I believe they were trailing at halftime, had to rally and win. South Carolina against Indiana, they won the game. They didn't win going away. So you're kind of seeing some of these top teams. The competition level goes up quite a bit in the second round, and that's what LSU is going to see. I mean, Florida State beats George Mason 94-59. This is exactly how the Seminoles want to play. They got 28 points from Tanaya Latson, who's their big scorer, nation leading scorer. Their big player inside, Michaela Timpson, the 6'3" player. She was 8 of 12 from the floor, grabbed 11 rebounds, scored 18 points. Sydney Bowles had hit all 5 of her 3-pointers. I mean, they put on a clinic too.
Yeah, Michaela Timpson is one of the most underrated players in the country. I feel like she's really long, really athletic, really good around the rim. She's averaging 18 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks, and she's shooting 54% from the field. So it's not just Tanaya Latson, as we've said on the podcast. Florida State has other contributors as well. So they're a really dangerous team. There's only 4 teams in the tournament that have at least 3 15-point per game scores. LSU is one of them, and Florida State is one of them as well. Latson, if you look at her numbers, where she really did most of her damage last night was at the free throw line. She did a great job driving the lane, getting around the rim, drawing fouls, and getting easy looks from the free throw line. And so LSU, I think one of the big emphasis probably while they were scouting Florida State is, okay, how can we wall off the paint? How can we prevent her from getting to the rim? And how can we really avoid fouling, right? Because Tanaya Latson, her bread and butter is going downhill, getting to the rim, drawing fouls, getting good looks at the free throw line, and then getting in rhythm that way. They're a very dribble penetration-based offense, a lot of drive and kick, a lot of shooting, and I think offensively they have a pretty similar identity to LSU. They love to play in transition. They love to play fast, and they are the number 2 scoring offense in the country. LSU's number 6. So I'm expecting tomorrow night is going to be a really fast-paced, high-scoring game. And if you look at some Florida State's defensive numbers, I think LSU's the better defensive team. But that being said, I looked at those numbers and I'm like, okay, they're probably not the best defensive team in the country. And then I went out there last night and I watched them play, and I'm like, oh man, they look pretty good defensively. They got a lot of length on the perimeter. They got a couple rim protectors, and George Mason was really having a tough time against them defensively. And then they use the stops they get on that end of the floor to really fuel their transition offense, which is pretty deadly. So I think LSU's in for a real challenge. I think it's going to be tough, but at the end of the day, it's just going to be a high-scoring, fast-paced game so LSU's going to have to score a lot of points if it wants to win.
Yeah, if you look at Bart Torvik's stats, LSU very balanced. They're 15th in the country in both adjusted offensive efficiency and adjusted defensive efficiency. Florida State is more of one of these run and gun teams. They're 9th in offensive efficiency. They're only 47th in defensive efficiency, and they also play pretty fast, right? They're 7th in the country in adjusted tempo. So they're going to look to run and gun. They want this to turn into a shootout. We've seen LSU win games like that. Like they beat Oklahoma in one of the crazier basketball games you'll ever see this year. Yeah, Tennessee, another one. So they're not uncomfortable in that situation. But if you're Kim Mulkey, Reed, do you think she tries to maybe slow the tempo a little bit and get this into more of a grinded out half court game, or what's your take on that?
No, definitely not. I think LSU's at its best when it's running in transition, playing fast paced. I think LSU doesn't want to play a half court game of offense. I don't think it wants to play slow games in the tournament. I think if it had run into a team that likes to slow down the pace and control the tempo, I think LSU would be in even more trouble than they are going into tomorrow's game. If you remember Middle Tennessee last year, they gave LSU trouble. Like I mentioned, had a 9-point lead early in the second half. Middle Tennessee was one of those teams that likes to slow down the pace, execute its half-court offense, get a good shot, and go down the other way and play defense. That's not Florida State. Florida State's going to try to get a stop, get a rebound, and then run. And I think that plays to LSU's strength because LSU's LSU is at the best version of itself when it can run in transition and get easy points on the fast break. If you look at Flage and Michaela and Anissa, they're all so good in transition, just the way their skill sets shape up. So no, I don't think LSU wants to slow it down. I think Kim Mulkey never wants to take her foot off the gas. I think they're going to be going about as fast as they can, and it should be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and to that point, LSU is 18th in the country in adjusted tempo. And so when they play fast teams, you mentioned the two, Oklahoma is number 1 in the country in tempo. Tennessee's number 4. Florida State's right there at number 7. So this is going to be that type of game. Should be very entertaining to watch. It's a 5 p.m. tip. Oh, thank heaven for small favors. We don't have another late night tip. 5 p.m. tip at the PMAC. If you can't make it out, the game's on ESPN. Either way, we will have a post-game show for you here on the LSU Sports Insider channel. Check us out, LSU Tigers at NOLA.com on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, the like button, all that good stuff for you. Once again, these little women's basketball updates throughout March Madness are brought to you by Our Lady of the Lake Health. They are the championship healthcare provider of LSU athletics. And Reed, I guess we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you for a pick, man. We've talked about the test that Florida State will bring, but Tigers or Noles, who you got tomorrow night?
When I filled out my bracket, I picked LSU to get out of the region, and I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm not backing off. But I feel less confident about it than I did when I first filled out my bracket because I was pretty impressed by Florida State last night, seeing them in person. So I'm still going with LSU. I think it's the kind of game that they've proven they can win and that they play their best basketball in. But I don't know. I think it should be difficult for them. I think it'll be a fight. I think it'll be a challenge. I think it'll be a close game. So.
All right. So we should be in store for a good one tomorrow night. I by the way, I was looking up as you were talking. We talked about all the tempo and offensive prowess of these teams. The over-under tomorrow is 171.5. So if you do the math, we're talking about a game well into the 80s, if not the 90s. LSU's favored by 10.5 points. So they are expected to get into the 90s tomorrow.
That's a pretty big spread. It's a little bigger than I was expecting it to be.
But if you like your fast-paced basketball, high-scoring basketball, PMAC tomorrow at 5 o'clock or on ESPN. Check it out. And like I said, we will have the post-game show for you on these same channels. He's Reed Darcey. I'm Zach Ewing. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you tomorrow night.